It's time for the second Shanghai E-Prix in 2024. Yesterday's race was thrilling and exciting until the very end as well. What's day 2 going to bring us as we gear up for another run? 2 laps less than yesterday. It's time for free practice 3. Let's hand over to the world feed. Tom Brooks alongside James Rossiter and Billy Monger.
Turn 7, high speed, going into high speed turn 8, this right-hander. We saw a lot of guys there. We saw Robin Frines losing the rear of his car through there. And then this really tight 10, 11, 12. We saw a little bit of action going across the grass.
Yeah, it certainly did. Pascal Wehrlein and Nick Cassidy in particular over the course of the race yesterday. And also Mitch Evans and Wehrlein at the final corner on the final lap. You can see here, despite it being 8 o'clock local time, 26 degrees track temperature, 27 degrees in air temperature. Expected high today of around about 34 degrees as the green flag flies. And we do get free practice 3 underway then here at Shanghai. Drivers heading out onto the circuit in a 2x2 formation, a bit of a Noah's Ark situation as we head out onto the circuit for the first time here on Sunday for round 12. Now, James, 1 lap fewer in terms of the race duration today. How do you think that's going to affect things in terms of energy management and changing how the race was? Because what we saw yesterday were drivers going quite slowly in the initial stages of the race, and then sort of the pinch point was about 7 or 8 laps before the end, starting to pick up the pace and then go for it and start setting lap times which were more towards what we saw in qualifying.
There's definitely going to be a high emphasis on qualifying today. You know, you're not going to be able to qualify down the back of the grid and sort of find your way to the front. I think it's going to be a bit trickier for the guys. We can see everyone heading out now. I'm sure there's been a lot of analysis done overnight by the engineers and drivers, changing setups, trying to figure out how to eke out those last couple of tenths. We saw such close lap times. I mean, Group A yesterday in qualifying, the knockout phase was less than a tenth. If you're less than a tenth off, you're in 5th place. I mean, that's incredible. So a lot of hard work has been done overnight here from everybody to try to make sure that they get the maximum out of their cars today. And
indeed in the duels as well, we saw drivers separated on some occasions by 1,000th of a second at some points as well. So really, really tight margins. You know, a 3 kilometre long lap. It's one of the longer laps we have actually on the Formula E calendar, but as you say, very, very tight margins. This section in particular, as you say, going through turns 10, 11 and 12, was the scene of a fair bit of controversy in the race yesterday. Most of all with Pascal Wehrlein and Nick Cassidy. The race results were actually under provisional status until about half an hour or so ago. We were waiting to see whether there were going to be any penalties awarded for Wehrlein's overtake on Cassidy, or whether we were going to see any penalties indeed for Roland as well, because he was under investigation.
Yeah, we've got an incredibly wide circuit here for the rest of the lap, and all the drivers got very confident 3, 4 wide, and then you get to this pinch point of turn 10, 11, 12, and then we're trying to go round there side by side, being forced onto the grass, bumping into each other, and it was very, very tricky for them to navigate.
Yeah, it certainly was. This is Mitch Evans, then the most recent race winner in Formula E. Took his 2nd victory of the season, continuing the stat actually of when he started in 3rd place this season. He's gone on to take the victory. He started in 3rd in Monaco and he won. He started in 3rd yesterday and he won. So he'll be hoping for P3 on the grid by all accounts here today.
I think he'll be hoping for the 3 points for pole position today. He's still got quite a lot of ground to make up on Nick Cassidy, on his teammate for the championship. So, you know, I think he's going to be trying to aim for as much points as possible. Obviously, confidence is high after the victory yesterday.
Yeah, 4th in the championship for Mitch Evans, 33 points the deficit to Nick Cassidy at the moment. So, as I said, whatever happens here between Cassidy and Evans, Cassidy will still be on top in the championship, but there is a possibility that that championship lead could change, because from 1st to 3rd, there's only 25 points separating them, a maximum of, what have we got, 28 points on offer here, so in fact, no, 29 points as a matter of fact, because of course the point for the fastest lap as well that are on offer here today. So there is an opportunity for that championship lead to change, and then certainly close up when we get to the end of the checkered flag come the E-Prix this afternoon.
Yeah, a lot can happen in Formula E, and I mean, Jake Dennis yesterday had a bit of a strange one for me. He made it to the front. Seemed like he used a bit too much energy in his attack mode at the end of the race, and then that kind of put him a bit on the back foot for those last couple of laps. But having said that, he got the fastest lap. Clearly the car has some speed, and I'm sure that with the analysis the Andretti guys would have done last night, Jake's going to be in the hunt today.
Just saw James Barkley in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. He's the team principal for Jaguar TCS Racing. When we finished dinner last night, we walked out of the restaurant through the lobby, and we saw James and Nick Cassidy having a bit of a conversation with one another. I have to say, the body language there looked a little bit frosty for my reckoning, and I can understand why, because Nick, as we heard yesterday, very frustrated on the radio. When he came to be interviewed after the race, he was very diplomatic about the whole situation. But I should imagine there was a fair old debrief and a good exchange of words going on between him and the team.
Well, you know, as a team principal, it is impossible to make two drivers happy. This I can guarantee you. So it's just about managing expectations, trying to make sure you keep the team atmosphere in the best way possible. You know, everyone needs to be happy, the team needs to be motivated, you all need to be chasing that common goal of winning the championships. You know, Nick is leading the championship. He has a great chance to really put one hand on the trophy even today if he can get the victory. So I can feel for Nick on that one, but also Mitch is so desperate to get a championship. He's been so close the last 2-3 years. And, you know, to lose out to his teammate is going to be the most painful loss ever.
Well, Nick played the team game to a T yesterday, didn't he? He didn't go and disrupt his teammates' rhythm.
But if it's the tyres or something, but feels a bit off.
Mitch not happy with the balance of the car at this early stage of free practice 3, but plenty of time for them to sort things out between now and quali.
I think that could be due to the higher temperatures we're seeing today and the humidity. It's very hot and muggy today.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? So he's saying that the front end sort of is not feeling particularly brilliant out there on track. So he's obviously struggling, I guess, to get sort of initial purchase on the tyres. We know that these Hankooks have a very narrow operating window. We saw it yesterday in qualifying, the drivers taking, you know, one lap to switch them on. In other situations, other circuits this year, they've taken a couple of laps to really get them into the right rhythm. But due to the fact that it's just that much hotter here this weekend, not so much of a problem. But of course, the converse with that is it's easy to overheat them.
It is very easy to overheat them on this circuit layout. You've got this really, really long turn one, and if you start the lap with the tyres in the right window, they're going to be too hot by the end of the lap. So you have to start with them a little bit lower. You have to really concentrate on your cool down in between your push laps or your preparation lap. You have to make sure that you're slightly underneath the tyre window when you start the lap.
Be fairly well spaced out ahead of you. Gunter approaching T7 on a push. So that's your gap, don't slow down too much, T10, that's your gap.
Jay Dennis, 5th yesterday in the race for round 11. Think you'll be a little bit disappointed with that. He's lagging behind in the championship somewhat at this crucial stage in the season. And if you remember back to 2023, what won him the championship ultimately was his consistency over the course of the year. 2024 has been a bit of a different story. He's not been up the sharp end as much as he was last year, and as a result, he's given himself a fair old bit of work to do with these 5 races remaining.
Well, unfortunately, he's had consistency, but it's been consistently bad qualifying. And that's what's really put him on the back foot. In the races, he's incredibly strong. He's found his way forwards into the top 5 on most occasions. But, you know, if he could get qualifying sorted, and, you know, he's been quite vocal about the fact that he struggles with the feeling of the brake pedal and something's different this year. You know, if he could fix that and he could qualify at the front, and we saw Norman Nato yesterday doing a great job as his teammate qualifying towards the front, the sharp end of the field. You know, if he can fix that today, he needs to fix it today, I think, to get back in the hunt.
Someone else who needs to have a bit of a better run is Max Gunter. Had a good points finish yesterday, but ends up getting a penalty as he kicks up a bit of dust going through the penultimate corner. This is the scene of where we saw Pascal Wehrlein overtaking Nick Cassidy, all 4 wheels off the track. Now, the stewards deciding not to penalise him at the end of that one. What are your thoughts on that, James?
Well, it's a bit of a difficult one. I mean, what we saw really was Pascal taking evasive action to make sure he didn't have contact and driving across the grass. You know, was it the right thing to do? You were first and second in the race. I mean, it was a choice that he made. It was either that or have a bit of contact. I think it was, you know, it's a difficult one because if you stay on and you had contact and if they're both gone out, it would have been terrible for both of them. So yeah, it's tricky one and a tricky one for the stewards, especially as Pascal was still in the lead of the race when he came out from the grass.
Well, as we saw, a double podium for Jaguar TCS Racing yesterday, 1st and 3rd. First for Evans and 3rd for Nick Cassidy. Obviously, a bit of a frosty reception, though, at the end of that race. Let's get down to Saunders, who's in the pit lane with team principal James Barkley, and get his thoughts on what happened in round 11.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. James, let's talk about yesterday. A good day at the office when it comes to results, a P1 and a P3. But your job as a team principal was very involved yesterday. Nick Cassidy not too happy.
Well, I mean, first things first, a double podium and a win is critical for the championship. And, you know, the reality is both drivers had an opportunity to win yesterday. And sometimes as a team, you have to make difficult calls. But I'm sure the immediate reaction when a driver gets out of the car and what you guys see and actually what happens in a team debrief afterwards, when we've all analysed everything, was very different. And, you know, so from my point of view, always not easy, right, in those scenarios. But, you know, Nick fully respected why Mitch was given the opportunity to fight for that win, having fought for the lead for most of the race and qualified in P3. And likewise, you know, the team respects the support that Nick provided the team at that point. But these things ebb and flow, and judge us over the season, right? One race is difficult to call, and the risk of potentially trying to orchestrate a position swap was also high risk. And also you have to consider that potentially we knew Pascal was going to be under investigation for cutting the chicane and taking the lead and holding the lead, not giving the position back. And if that had been penalised, we would have been 1-2. So it's not as simple as it seems on paper. When you do the analysis afterwards, you look at all those risks and we weigh those up in the race, you have to take the right decision. And we believe we did that, in the team, you know, finished the debrief that way last night. And yeah, we now focus on trying to do our best job today.
So looking forward to today then, when you talk about qualifying, it didn't seem like it was going to be the most important thing yesterday, but perhaps potentially more so today.
Yes, I mean, still, it really depends on weather as well today. If we see rain today, that could change the whole format of the race. If there isn't rain, then we'll have still a peloton effect race, so I don't think qualifying is quite as critical as somewhere like Monaco. But I think, of course, you know, you did see the lead group of cars cycling for most of the race, so that progression through the field even yesterday wasn't the easiest, but it is still possible. But let's wait and see what the weather does.
A full happy camp, both sides of the garage going into today.
Yeah, I mean, it's a double podium. We extended the championship lead. Nick's leading the Drivers' Championship. Mitch has made an improvement. So all metrics are good.
Bring on today. Thanks, James.
Thanks.
Can you either go for an ad break there as well? They always seem to. Doesn't give me a chance to warm the voice though as well before they throw me in at the deep end for a few minutes. Muller then, 1:14.038. Van Dorn in second, Verne third, Freins fourth. Buemi fifth, Verline in sixth. As you can tell, I really don't have the voice for this right now. It's all about warming it up, ready for the rest of the day. So, cheekily, I'm afraid I'm going to hand you over to the world feed because we're opening up on a different stream, because otherwise I'm just not going to have the voice. Honestly, it's that type of day where we just sort of have to accept the world feed for the practice session and come back for qualifying. Otherwise, it's just going to be a no-go zone, basically. There will be no voice whatsoever. But Muller fastest as well at the moment is quite an entertaining little run around as well. It'll be interesting to see what he does get up to. If he can take a pole position later on in the session, that's always going to be a key factor. But yeah, let's hand over.
Different decision could have been made, but if you waited to the last 3 or 4 laps, that reasoning holds.
Hindsight's a wonderful thing, though, isn't it? Of course, you know, it's always easy to look back and say, well, maybe we should have done this or should have done that. We look here at Sam Bird. Just touching on that very briefly. Obviously, when we look at the team principal side of it, it's easy to kind of see that side of the coin. If you Nick Cassidy sat there in the cockpit, though, would you have just gone, I've got a championship on the line, I'm going to go for it and argue the case later?
He still needs the support of the team, and Nick's been an incredible team player this season. You know, he helped the team massively with that incredible 1-2 in Monaco. You know, that was really down to Nick Cassidy, and he allowed then Mitch to stay in front after Mitch took his second attack mode, and Mitch went on to win the race. Great team player. Also in Berlin, he tried to help Mitch out in the second race. So the team need to, you know, understand that. I'm sure they do from what James has just said. And hopefully the team are going to be there to support him in these final 5 races.
Well, we'll see how it all works out. I'm sure it will be a very interesting set of circumstances, as it always is in Formula E. Now, Sam Bird and Neil McLaren did not have a good day at the office yesterday, 17th across the line, and also teammate Jake Hughes only 1 position better in 16th. Bird, of course, returning from the injury which put him out for a couple of races after a crash in free practice 1 in Monaco, which re-broke the bone in his right hand. He's got some more scaffolding in there, got it pinned and plated, got himself back in the car, but a very early return to that, given the severity of the injury.
Yeah, and also the steering weight of these cars, they're very, very heavy. You get a lot of load going through the steering, especially because you've got the front powertrain, so you've got the drive shafts attached to the front wheels. The steering's really hard. These guys, you know, they have to be very strong to drive these cars. Sam has quite a bit of swelling in the hand today, from what I understand from yesterday's race, so hopefully he's going to be okay.
Yeah, with a bit of luck, he'll be all right. But of course, the good thing for him is if he can get through this afternoon, then there's what, 4 weeks to go to Portland, so he's got a bit of time to recover. You know, maybe go to one of those I was going to say cryogenic chambers, I don't mean that. I mean one of those oxygen tank things that you can go into where you can go and it can sort of re-heal broken bones. That little bit quicker.
Hyperbaric chamber.
Hyperbaric chambers, that's the one I'm thinking of.
I've been put in those a few times.
Yeah, I've been in one of those as well when I did my collarbone a couple of years back. But they do work, and you know there's a reason for them. So we'll see whether we see Sam Bird sticking on one of those masts in between now and Portland. As we look inside the garage, currently with 15 minutes to go, it is Nico Müller who is the fastest driver from the two DS Penske's. 1:14 flat, so time's a little bit quicker than this time yesterday, despite the warmer conditions. Dan Ticktum and ERT did not have a particularly brilliant day at the office. Likewise, teammate Sergio Sette Camara, Ticktum across the line in 20th eventually, and Sergio Sette Camara 13th. So both of the drivers missing out on points. Home weekend for ERT. You can see the red flashes on the nose and on both of the front and the rear wings. They'll be hoping for a bit more forward progress. These energy-sensitive races that we've had have not been particularly kind to ERT because the efficiency of that powertrain has not been quite there compared to the Jaguars and the Porsches and the Stellantis ones of the DS Penske's and the Maseratis.
Well, you know, it's very difficult to say it's the efficiency because you don't really know what the other teams are doing. You don't know if it's the efficiency of the powertrain, if it's the efficiency of the software, the strategy that the team deploy in terms of energy management. There's a huge amount of variables that goes into these Formula E races, and you know that's what drives the innovation here in this championship. Is you have to be looking for performance in every tiny area. So easy excuse, I think, to say that the efficiency is not there in the powertrain. I think there's a lot of complexities that go on and a lot of areas that you can eke performance out.
So coming into the final 15 minutes, we're over halfway through this session. Now here, James, and drivers are beginning to start doing attack laps. You can see that Jake Dennis there, he's in attack mode, the name flashing pink on the tower graphic now, so he's deciding to go from 300 to 350 kilowatts of power. What sort of data can they gather from yesterday and indeed this morning? Because we've had a little bit of overnight rain. As James Barkley said earlier on, there's a possibility of rain this afternoon during the E-Prix.
10.6 was okay. But everywhere else is oversteer to understeer, then back to oversteer.
That's not a balance you want in a race car.
No, oversteer then understeer. That's not ideal. It's like
no. The thing is you want a strong front end here, but you need a rear that follows, and clearly he's not got that.
Well, we've seen drivers, as you say, having good purchases on the front end, but then the rear's giving up, especially through these long corners. You know, through turns 7 and 8. In particular, but as I say, just going back to the data, the weather conditions, you know, what we're expecting today, what sort of useful data can they gather this morning, if indeed there is that threat of rain and if it does come to a 4 later, because they'll have no wet running this weekend.
Well, you have to commit to the present moment, and you know, you can prepare all you want for the rain, but you don't know if it's going to come. So I think everyone's just going to be focusing on getting the best chassis balance possible, trying to make sure that they've got the performance there for qualifying, and you know, if it does rain, qualifying is going to be even more important because it's going to be less energy sensitive and you're going to really want to be in the front of the field.
Well, the last wet race we had in Formula E was London 2022, and I think before that was New York 2021, if you remember, when we had a...
I'm not sure that was wet, I think that was a monsoon. I was definitely there.
That's a good point. Edo Mortara, snap of oversteer we just saw through turn 8. There's a replay of it, so the rear not wanting to stick to the tarmac as much as he would like.
No, but super fast reflexes from Edo. Great car control.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing what Mortara can do. You worked with him last year when he was at Maserati. What did you make of him as a driver? Because he's coming, I guess, towards the end of his driving career. He's, what, 36, 37 years old now, so...
Exceptional driver, Edo. He's, you know, very, very smart, calculated. He gives great feedback, and I'm sure that he's going to drive that team further up the grid. I mean, we saw him already have a pole position for Mahindra, a team that really struggled in this Gen 3 era. So I think that we're going to see a lot more from Edo.
Yeah, we'll see what Edo can do. Let's get down to Saunders then, who is in the pit lane. Saunders, who have you found for us now?
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, I'm here with Ian James from Near McLaren. A couple of things I want to ask you. First of all, Sam Bird returned to racing after the injury. How was it yesterday? How's he finding the recovery?
Yeah, I think the recovery is going very well. I mean, first and foremost, it's great to see him back in the car again here in Shanghai. A little bit sore yesterday. I saw him with an ice pack on the hand, especially after the incident in the race with being hit from behind by Günther. So that knocked it a little bit, but no, he assures me it's all good. So looking forward to seeing what he can do today.
Okay, with that in mind, I want to talk a bit about strategy and in particular attack mode. Because yesterday it seemed to me that Jake's strategy was sort of an unsuccessful overcut attack mode. What happened there to lose the positions, and how can you avoid that happening today?
Yeah, obviously we've taken a close look at what happened yesterday. With this style of racing that we've got at the moment, again, it's very difficult to make sure that you're taking the attack mode in the right places and then not losing too many places in doing so. So that overcut, undercut is absolutely crucial. The other thing that I think caught us out a little bit yesterday was the fact that once we did take attack mode, potentially a little bit too late, the tyres were then past their best, and obviously we couldn't capitalise on having the additional power. So that's something that we've learned from, something that we can use to make sure that we do a better strategy today.
Just one of the many things you need to think about when it comes to Formula E racing. Talking about today then, let's talk qualifying, because yesterday there was some good showing on display there.
I think Jake again shows that his single lap pace is outstanding. He was very unlucky in fact, to miss out on getting through to the quarterfinals there. So I'm confident that we can put a good showing in there today as well. And Sam's race was fantastic. So coming from P19 all the way through up as far as I think P7 at one point. So very unfortunate to get collected in that incident. Otherwise, I think the outcome could have been very different.
So one lap less today, how might that change things?
I think we'll see a little bit of change. I don't think as much as maybe the weather could play a role in it though. We're expecting a little bit of rain potentially coming over this afternoon. We thought it was going to be tomorrow, then it came to tonight, and now I think it's looking more and more threatening for the race itself. So I think that's going to play more of a mix than maybe that lap count.
Exciting times. Thanks, James.
All right, thank you.
They're absolutely harrying the car. Great to hear from Ian James and Saunders just a few moments ago. Very good point he raises actually about Jake Hughes in particular. Of course, got up in that incident with Max Günther, a bit of an innocent bystander. Günther sending it through on the inside, collecting Hughes, and then also sending Mortara out of the race subsequently as well. As we look at Sete Camera, grass tracking his way through. As I said, the car looking a little bit unstable on the rear.
Yeah, just going back to Neon McLaren drivers. They're under a bit of pressure because the young rookie that stepped in, Taylor Barnard, he did an amazing job for the team, replacing Sam Bird after his injury. And Taylor yesterday actually won the Formula 2 sprint race, so huge pressure from both their drivers.
Just looking at the dust and the dirt that's being kicked up offline there through the final couple of corners, you can see just how much grass and stuff has been pulled onto the offside of the circuit.
Yeah, I think yesterday they got their confidence levels up a little bit with how much lawnmower action they could get done here in China.
Yeah, who knew a Gen 3 Formula E car can double up as a fly mode? Well, I suppose the Neon McLaren is at least the right colour for it. Yeah, it's a good point you raised there about Taylor Barnard, actually, because, as you say, really strong performances from him. You know, Monaco as well in Formula 2, he's been doing exceptionally well this weekend in a bit of an unfavoured car. And, you know, if you're Ian James, surely you've got to be keeping one eye on what Taylor's doing throughout this year.
More than one eye, I think. You know, if a young man like that, 19 years old, winning races in Monaco yesterday, it's exceptional. So yeah, I think Ian James is going to have a difficult choice on his hands come next season.
It's an interesting one though, because the consistency of McLaren this year has been a bit up and down. If you look to Sao Paulo, really quick with Sam Bird, and then if you look at their performances over the last few rounds, then of course we've not seen the same performances.
No, they've definitely been struggling a little bit to maximise potential. I mean, we saw Jake Hughes yesterday, bottom of the timesheets in free practice, then pulled out an amazing qualifying, and then he struggled a little bit in the race. So it's a bit hit and miss. I think they're very close to a great result again. They're just searching to make sure the car's in that window, and as soon as they hit the window, I'm sure we're going to see Sam and Jake in the front.
Just saw Phil Charles sitting in the DS Penske garage, of course, signing over from Jaguar for this year. 4th and 5th they are now, with Jaguar just going up to 2nd place courtesy of Mitch Evans. Günther currently fastest with a 13.649, so that's not a bad lap time for him there.
It's quite a bit slower than we saw yesterday. I mean, pole position was 13.3. We saw free practice 2 yesterday morning was 13.4 for the best time. So yeah, maybe it's the hotter conditions making it a little bit more difficult for the tyre to last the entirety of this lap. And yes. But nice lap from Max Günther there to be P1.
Yeah, and also one lap fewer in terms of the race. James Barkley and Ian James saying that they're not expecting the distance being reduced to be so much of a problem, but actually the weather and the threat of rain to be the main factor this afternoon.
Yeah, I mean, look, if the weather comes and it does rain, qualifying is even more important. So I think it's going to be all eyes on how to get the maximum out qualifying.
Well, you know, is it a case of do you need a car with 4 wheels or a boat with 2 oars? Depends on how heavy the rain is, I suppose.
I don't know. From the forecast I looked at, I don't think it's going to be that heavy, the rain. But seeing Nick Cassidy jump to the top of the times, he's definitely looking strong now.
Yeah, Phil Ingram there, his race engineer, just watching on. Cassidy doing a fantastic job once again. He's always been there and thereabouts throughout the 2024 season. Good run he has had. Likewise, also his teammate Mitch Evans as well. Of course, one of the most consistent men throughout this season has been Oliver Rowland and Nissan as well. He's down in 19th place at the moment. Teammate Sasha Fenestraz qualified 18th on the road. When you see Rowland putting in those strong performances and Fenestraz, who has been struggling, to put it lightly, throughout this season, he really needs to have a good final 5 races to try and secure himself a seat for next season, if nothing else.
What's strange for me is Sasha Fenestraz was amazing in his rookie year last year. You know, he had pole positions, he was fighting always at the front, he was always exciting to watch, and this year really he's not really featured at all. I mean, he definitely needs some strong results going for these final 5 races. Today he needs to deliver. As you said, Oliver Rowland has been consistently fighting for podiums in the same car, so a lot of pressure on Sasha coming to the final run here in the season.
Yeah, it certainly is. Looking at Mortara making his way through turn 7 and 8 on the left-hand, about 4/10 of a second down, but on a personal best run in this session so far. Just a little bit of traffic courtesy of Jake Hughes in front.
Yeah, that's definitely not gonna happen.
No, Hughes trying to stay off the racing line, but the problem is it sort of tightens up as you go through the ends of those corners, and we have seen drivers getting balked a little bit on their flying laps over the course of it. We didn't see it so much in qualifying yesterday, a little bit in free practice, if you remember Jehan Darugla just getting pretty close for comfort with Nick Cassidy at one point. As Mortara comes across the line, stays 18th quickest. What about Robin Freitz? He had a spin all on his own yesterday as he clips the curb.
That's interesting there. You can see that where they've been cutting the corner, they've actually dragged so much dirt and grass away from the other side of the curb. It's making it much more aggressive. You can see Robin just getting thrown up in the air there. I think that could mean that in the race they're not going to be able to cut so much that right-hander of turn 10.
Well, we'll see what happens. Both Freitz and Buemi on push laps at the moment, so on the full attack mode with 350 kilowatts of power. Buemi 8th quickest yesterday. Freitz, despite that spin, finishing 12th, 14th on the road again, of course, courtesy of those 2 penalties for Max Günther and Antonio Felix da Costa. He was promoted, so again he'll be hoping for better fortunes. I was speaking to some of the Envision team in a lift yesterday actually, and they were saying that they've got a lot of personnel coming here this weekend, so they'll be again hoping to try and put on a good show in front of the big bosses.
Yeah, reigning teams champions, team Envision. They've really underperformed so far this season, and it's a bit perplexing as to why, because they've got that Jaguar powertrain. Jaguar dominating the championship at the moment with Nick Cassidy and Mitch Evans. So yeah, they're definitely under a bit of pressure to deliver some results.
Well, I don't want to put too fine a point on it, and without wishing to sound ungracious, is it a driver-related problem?
Well, last year they had Nick Cassidy. Nick finished runner-up in the championship. He clearly was the leader of the team. He led the team's direction on setup. It's yeah, it would look like that has had a significant impact in the team.
Yeah, Robin Freitz, of course, returning over from Apps Cupra last year, as we see Jake Dennis going a little bit wide at turn 10, but yeah, it hasn't been a harmonious 2024 for them by any stretch of the imagination. Languishing down in 8th in the team's championship. Their chance to win that crown this year has slipped through their fingers, unfortunately, and unless they have a blinding run throughout the remaining 5 races of this season, it is going to be a contrasting set of circumstances from 2023 to 2024. As we look at Oliver Rowland going through the attack mode activation zone out of the exit of turn 2. Dan Tingson's having a good run here, James, as well, up into 9th place. Not a bad session so far for the Briton.
No, it looks good. It looks like ERT have found something overnight. No, that seems fairly impressive lap time from Dan Tickton there to put himself inside the top 10. I do hope he can have a good qualifying year. He's been one of the strong performers in qualifying in this season. and it does seem like when he gets the car underneath him, he's able to deliver some pretty special laps.
Just understanding that Norman Natto's got a car-related problem in this race, down in 22nd, 1.3 seconds off of the pace at the moment, so not an ideal FP3 for Norman Natto, considering that he's been on good form in the practice sessions this weekend. He was fastest in FP1, he was second fastest in FP2. Come qualifying, he ended up 7th, and come the race, he ended up down in 14th, so didn't go his way.
No, definitely it didn't go the right direction. I think you'd prefer it to have been the other way around, but he's slower in practice and faster in the race. But no, Norman showing some great performances at the beginning of the weekend. I don't think missing out at the end of this session will have too much impact on him, as he knows where his car's at and he knows what his performance is. He made it into the duels yesterday, so hopefully that won't have too much of an impact on his qualifying.
Well, last 10 seconds of free practice 3 now beginning to conclude. Drivers, a lot of them on push laps at this point, including this man here, Nick Cassidy. He's not lighting up the timing screen, so I would imagine that we're going to see a few personal best sectors from some other drivers coming through before the end of the session, so I'm sure positions will be set to change on the timing tower.
He's sliding quite a lot there, Nick Cassidy, struggling with the rear tyres at the end of the lap, but he's almost matching his time at the moment, which is good enough for P1.
Yeah, it's not been a bad session at all for Nick Cassidy. Comes around the final corner. 1:13.5 is the quickest time he's set in this session, and it's another 1:13.5, just 0.15 of a second away as we look at Stoffel Van Dorn. Stays 8th quickest, doesn't improve at the end of free practice 3.
That's very impressive from Nick Cassidy. 2 laps that are good enough to be P1, and he's fastest by a margin that was covering sort of the top 6 yesterday, so he definitely looks like he's got a bit to his teeth. Dan Tickton jumping straight up to P2.
Lovely job from Dan Tickton for ERT, giving the team something to smile about in their home race here this weekend. What about Oliver Rowland, languishing down in 17th place, goes up to only 14th at the end of this session, so I don't know if that's a cause for concern before qualifying, but I'm sure he would have wanted to be a little bit higher up. Verline not looking like he's going to improve either. Jake Dennis stays 11th and Verline stays 13th. What about Mitch Evans, 5th quickest in this session, 10th of a second behind his teammate Nick Cassidy, so fairly close margins there. What have we got? Half a second separating 17 drivers on the grid, so not quite as close as yesterday, but good sessions there, in particular for Nick Cassidy, for Dan Tickton, and also for Jake Hughes inside the top 5.
Just jet lag. Took a while to wake up this weekend.
To be fair, it has been a bit of a killer.
Christ, well, if that's going to be his performance for the rest of the day, I'd be very worried if I was the others.
You want to get him some of those melatonin gummies that you've got. They'll help you sleep for nobody's business.
No, but Dan Tickton in P2, that is a stunning performance from ERT and from Dan Tickton. I hope that they can carry that form into qualifying and into the race, because they're deserving of a great result, and that is really, really impressive from them.
Certainly is. We're seeing some drivers here doing practice starts, others have just gone straight back into the pit lane. What's that all about?
Well, they did the practice start yesterday. I think the grip hasn't changed much from yesterday. One of the big things that the teams do is they actually put one of the cars on the right-hand side of the track, one of the cars on the left-hand side of the track, and when you do the practice start, you get the data inside the car as to how much grip each side of the circuit has. If it is kind of equal, which we see here, which is more of a strange one, let's be honest, because normally it's very dusty on one side of the grid and clean on the other side, and then you need to adjust the software to make sure you get the perfect start. So I think the guys are confident that from the starts yesterday that we saw, there's no need to do any practice starts.
Well, Nick Cassidy out of the car, fastest at the end of free practice 3. He'll be pretty pleased with that. Something for him to smile about, and for Jaguar to smile about going into qualifying later on here this morning. Here is Stoffel Van Dorn, just the one podium finish for him so far this season. He was 9th quickest at the end of that session. Dan Tickton, though, meanwhile, just done his practice start, now making his way back into the pit lane. Good session for Dan Tickton. Sergio Sette-Camera, his teammate, languishing down in 16th place, about 4/10 of a second behind him in terms of pace at the end of that session. Team radio.
So cool. Okay, good job. Currently P2, best last sector, purple.
Well, there we are, Dan Tickton just having a quick debrief with his race engineer as we look at Pascal Verline now making his way out of the garage, heading down towards the weighbridge. Let's have a look then, shall we, at results from FP3 after a fairly good session. Nice and quiet for a lot of the drivers, and good pace for them in the hot conditions here this morning. 27 degrees it is already, and it's only just gone 8:30 local time. Nick Cassidy fastest then from Dan Ticktum. Antonio Felix da Costa up in third place, leading Porsche's charge ahead of Max Günther following his demise yesterday. Then Mitch Evans in fifth place, Jake Hughes in sixth ahead of Jean-Eric Verne, Robin Freitz, Stoffel van Dorn and Jehan de Rouvela. Good session for him inside the top 10, just 0.3 of a second away from the quickest time. Further down the order, Jake Dennis down in 11th ahead of Lucas de Grassi and Pascal Wehrlein, so two Porsche-powered cars outside of the top 10. And one of the most consistent men so far this season, Oliver Rowland, languishing down in 14th place ahead of Buemi, Seti Camara, Nico Muller, Nick de Vries, Edo Mortara, the two Mahindras inside the top 20 ahead of Sam Bird, Sasha Fenestras, and of course Norman Nato. We know he had a car-related problem which brought an early end to round 12 for him. Or early end for round 12's free practice 3, I should say, for him. As you see the drivers making their way down towards the weighbridge. Good opportunity for them to have a quick debrief out of earshot of the rest of the team.
Yes, I mean, I don't think they're going to be saying too much in the pit lane where other people can overhear them, but strange for me to see Jake Dennis, Pascal Wehrlein, Oliver Rowland not inside the top 10. Three of the guys fighting for this championship. Yeah, difficult morning for them.
Yeah, do you think there's much of a cause for concern?
Yes, I do, especially when you see the lap time of the Jaguars, both Jaguars in the top 5. You know, those three are outside of the top 10. They're going to have to pull something out of the bag in qualifying, otherwise this championship's going to start to get more difficult.
Well, the man on the left's teammates, Nick Cassidy, is fastest in the session. Saunders is down in pit lane catching up with him.
I said he did Cassidy, you said there on the radio, jet lag may be cleared up now and you're ready to go. Now, if that is the case, I think everyone else should be very worried because you've looked very, very good this weekend so far.
Yeah, the team's done a really good job this weekend. I must say, I found something a bit of myself there, but look, it's just going to be so tight in quali still. It kind of doesn't mean much still. The times are still really tight, so let's see what happens in quali.
So we spoke to James earlier in the session. He gave us kind of the rundown on the conversations, but it sounds like you're in a good place now as a team to be able to really hit the ground running today and push for even better points results today potentially.
No different to yesterday. The team's been strong every day of the season, so we just got to keep going.
How might today differ from yesterday with the one lap less?
I think the main thing's going to be rain. So, yeah, not really. I don't think the lap distance yet is spoken about internally too much. It's more looking at the weather.
We've started the day fastest man on track. Let's see if it stays that way.
Yeah, there's no grip positions from practice, so we'll keep pushing.
Thanks, Nick.
Well, Nick Cassidy just to get a job in Las Vegas playing poker. He's keeping his card so close to his chest, isn't he? Let's have a look at highlights then from free practice 3. Cars came out onto the circuit in a 2x2 formation and a fairly uneventful session for most of the drivers. This is the man who won the first race of the weekend yesterday. Of course, Mitch Evans, he'll be hoping to do the same, finish 5th at the end of FP3. We saw Jake Dennis struggling a little bit in that session, down in 11th place. He'll be hoping that they've got enough time to try and right some of those setup-related problems, and likewise Edo Mortara as well, suffering from a bit of rear instability there.
Yeah, great car control from him, but we can see the guys cutting so much of these curbs in the final sector. It's almost taking a bit too much, leaving a bit to chance there.
Antonio Felix da Costa, third quickest for him at the end of free practice 3, in stark contrast to his teammate Pascal Wehrlein, who was 13th fastest. So a bit of work for him to do. We saw Robin Freitz doing a little bit of grass tracking and a fair old bump on the inside there going through into turn 10 as well. So something for the drivers to consider. Actually, both wheels going up in the air.
Yeah, you're gonna have to take more curb than that, believe it or not. You're gonna actually have to be 2 wheels on the grass, I think, or miss it like that man there, Mr. Cassidy.
Well, it didn't seem to stop him too much or slow him down at all.
No, perhaps he's found the right line.
Yeah, 2 laps that were good enough for the fastest time at the end of the session. Great job also from Dan Ticktum as well, second quickest, less than a tenth of a second away from Cassidy at the end of FP3. As we see Antonio Felix da Costa, Robin Freitz having a bit of a debrief down in the pit lane. Let's go down to Saunders, see who he's found at the end of this session as well.
Looks pretty good out there. You're looking confident. The balance, everything setting up well for you?
Yeah, I mean, here because you've got sort of long corners, the car's like under a lot more load, so small changes sort of make a bit of a bigger difference than street circuits. You normally have to make more of a difference, but I mean, here we didn't change that much overnight, like quite small changes, and it actually made like quite a big difference. So it's difficult, man. It's not easy to drive. I mean, I'm sweating in practice. That's not normal. So
Quali up next. Looking forward to see what you can do, mate.
yeah, I think it'll be tough when we're all in 300, but I'll do my best. Yeah.
Thanks, Dan.
Good to hear from Dan Ticktum. So free practice 3 comes to an end. Thank you so much for your company. We kick off qualifying in just over an hour and a half's time here in Shanghai for round 12.
Thanks for your company. We'll see you later on then for all the action from qualifying at 3:10 a.m. See you in about an hour and a half.